Dio's unmuted, so he's ready to go.
Okay. You ready? Good afternoon, everyone. If you could take your seats, we're going to get started. So welcome to the Saunders College of Business Favatas Lecture Series. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jackie Moserell. I'm Dean of Saunders College of Business, and we are very happy to have you here with us today. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you for what I know will be a memorable lecture with exciting speakers. The Favatas Lecture Series was established by Louise Warner and Don Cole-Morgan and named after their godson and Saunders graduate, Dio Favatas. Their aim was to promote a relationship between recent RIT employed graduates or alumni who would discuss the real world of business with our RIT students. Warner is the founder, chairman, and chief executive officer of HCR Incorporated, and the 1989 winner of the Herbert W. Vandenbroel Entrepreneurial Award from Saunders College of Business. Cole-Morgan is a longtime consultant to the healthcare industry, and Dio Favatas works as head of identity and marketing clouds at Tradens Incorporated. At this time, I would like to ask Dio to join us virtually to offer remarks and to introduce our speakers, Bianca and Brendan. Dio?
Can you hear me? Thank you, Dean Moserell. I know you just gave a little excerpt on why the lecture series exists, but coming from personal experience, throughout my time at RIT, or even when I went to do my master's degree in business, the typical model in universities is you bring somebody that's a legacy in the business world to come back and speak to a younger class. So like think of when I was in school, like a Jack Welch coming. There are generational divides though, and oftentimes we forget that we're actually studying and we're learning with other really successful people that have truly unique life stories. And that's the reason why we created the lecture series in that way, is to promote and bring back recent or near recent RIT grads from across the schools and programs to come back and speak and share their words of wisdom with you, the students. So that being said, I wanted to take the time now to introduce Bianca and Brendan Shah. They are alumni siblings who both graduated from RIT in 2015 and are visiting us from Los Angeles, where they run International Tea Importers, ITI, and Chato Tea Room. Bianca earned a BS in management from Saunders College. She stepped in to learn the family business from their father, Devin Shah. Her brother, Brendan, received a BS in Comp Sci and a BS in computational mathematics. He worked as a software engineer at Amazon after graduation. Now, after their father's untimely death, both were thrust into running their family business with little guidance and much to learn. Over the years, they worked tirelessly on modernizing the company's operations while keeping their family's legacy alive and well. During their time, they encountered several opportunities to use the skills they developed to step into different companies and help them achieve new levels of growth. They sit on the management teams of ITI and Chato, as well as Flavor God Seasoning, Shred Supplements, and Skinny Bunny Tea, and advise entrepreneurs across the food industry on how to build strong teams and use social media to grow their brands. Bianca and Brendan will be sharing their keynote speech, From Daddy Issues to Boss Vibes, Turbulence and Transforming a Tea Legacy. Without further delay, please join me in welcoming Bianca and Brendan as our speakers. Brendan and Bianca.
Thank you, Dio, for that. Thank you to the Saunders College for inviting us. Honestly, it's a huge honor, and we're really excited to be here today. I think when we first got asked, I told Bianca that we were going to do this, and I think why don't you share your feedback?
I said, "Why would you say yes? Like, what are you talking about?" We're going to give a talk, and he knew exactly how to stroke my ego and said, "Bianca, did you really ever think you'd ever get asked to come back to RIT to speak?" And I said, "You're right. Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. That is pretty cool." So super honored, and actually, the first time we spoke to Dio, I think I shed a few tears. I was really honored to be asked to come back. So super excited to be here. So I'm Bianca. It's nice to meet you all, see you all here in person. This is my older brother, Brendan.
Right here.
As Dio mentioned, I have my bachelor's in management, minored in marketing with my concentration in Spanish. You guys might be able to hear that I'm a little bit under the weather, so I've decided to, lesson 1, delegate a good chunk of this talk to my brother. But no, I'll still be telling you guys a few things about who we are and all of that. So if you want to take us through the outline.
Yeah, it's a really brief outline. We're not going to sit here and read off of the slides, but we're just going to go through who we are and the companies that we run, kind of the challenges that we faced when we started running these companies, and maybe talk a little bit about like developing your skills when you start off in your career, and specifically for us and specifically for entrepreneurs, taking initiative, and then kind of the hard-learned lessons about entrepreneurship that we've learned, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what we want to do next, and how those lessons that we've learned have shaped kind of the direction that we're going.
Alrighty, so I'll take you guys through kind of a brief history of our companies and of our family. The topic of our talk is daddy issues, so let me start by talking about our dad. He grew up in India. He grew up in tea plantations in India, in South India, in the Nilgiris. His brother-in-law worked on the farms there, which kind of helped cultivate his love for tea. He grew up to become a broker, a tea broker in tea before moving to the U.S. He's always had an entrepreneurial mindset, so when he came here, he decided, he wanted to start a business. A few businesses, an Indian grocery store, then an electronics shop, both failed businesses. But that was when, in 1990, he married my mom. They moved to California, and that was where ITI, then known as India Tea Importers, was started. That's what ITI is. We were an importing and exporting business. So we imported teas from India specifically at the time. Nobody in the country was really doing this. He was one of the first to do this independently. Obviously, there was companies like Lipton and stuff like that. But he is actually credited now by the World Tea Academy for popularizing and bringing chai to the U.S. So that's kind of our claim to fame.
Yeah. Before then, chai was kind of a traditional beverage that Indian people drank in their households. Kind of the story of how chai got into coffee shops is we worked with a company called Oregon Chai, and we made the first chai concentrate that you see at most coffee shops nowadays. Kind of the reason you also hear chai tea thrown around a lot is at the time when they started offering chai, they needed to specify that this thing was tea. So that's why, to many Indians' dismay, we call it chai tea.
Sorry. All right. In 1993, our parents opened up Chado Tea Rooms, which is a tea room. We now have 4 locations across just the Los Angeles area. This is your typical kind of afternoon sit-down tea room where we have a full afternoon tea rack, scones, very European style. And this was our parents' vision of just bringing tea to the general public. How can we get Americans drinking more tea in general and just getting kind of away from coffee and to popularize it. So 1993, we opened our very first location. In 2002, we opened our second location, and it's been growing since then. In 2003, ITI made the very difficult decision of changing its name to ITI, India Tea Importers, to International Tea Importers, because we were now bringing in teas from all over the world. Now we import from, I don't know, maybe like 10 different countries around the globe. So basically, if it grows tea, we sell it. All of that's been great. In 2015, yours truly graduated from RIT, from Saunders, and from Golisano. In 2016, we took over the company. So, you know, a good year after graduating, we said, we're ready. A couple of years after that, I think we kind of found our stride, so much so that we had a few companies come to us and ask us to help them with their company. So we must have been doing something right. And that's where we kind of helped take over and are help running Shred Supplements, Flavor God Seasonings, and Skinny Bunny Teas. 2020, I don't need to elaborate on what happened then. If we thought 2016 was hard, 2020 was, boy, that was not fun. And now, bringing it to the present, we're kind of making it our own now, so it's very exciting. So 2016, tragedy strikes, and this brings me to lesson number 2, compartmentalize. We were kind of, I had a 5-year plan with my dad, and it was not what I expected. I had just graduated, and I was working with him a little bit here and there, and I now was suddenly shot to the top. We were both shot to the top of the company, where we were now responsible for 50-plus employees, just, again, a year after graduating.
Yeah. Obviously, you know, that was hard on both of us. I'll get into it a little bit later, but like in the position that we were in, we didn't get to deal with the loss of our father immediately, right? Pretty much the next day, we had to go into the office and tell everybody that he had passed and that we were taking it over. Thankfully, you know, we had some cousins that came out and helped us have those difficult conversations and help us make decisions early on. But you know, it was really difficult, and it took years before, you know, at least for me, I addressed that emotional trauma. But yeah, no, that's, you know, really super exciting talk, right? So in being launched to the top of the company, we kind of had to deal with lots of challenges, right? Not to mention the least, I was a computer science and math major, so there was a bunch of stuff I didn't know about running a business. I had never looked at a profit and loss statement. I've never looked at a balance sheet. Those were things I needed to learn pretty much the first day I was there. There's, how many of you are familiar with the Eisenhower matrix? I'm assuming a fair number of you. But if you don't know, the Eisenhower matrix is based off of this quote from President Eisenhower, where he said he deals with 2 types of problems, urgent ones and important ones, and the urgent ones are never important, and the important ones are never urgent. So when we started, there were a lot of urgent problems that we needed to face. We grew up in the tea industry, so we knew a fair amount. I'm almost surprised, or at the time I was always surprised when I was talking to somebody and they just, stuff that I thought was basic information about tea, they didn't know. And, you know, that was helpful for showing off to my friends, not as helpful for running a tea company. And this is probably the biggest one, we became like go-to people to learn about tea, right? So there were people in our lives who helped raise us who we called aunt and uncle in the tea industry, who were now asking us questions about like, oh, hey, can you tell me more about this lot number of this tea from Assam? And
Why can't you tell me?
it was really difficult, right, and super stressful. We quickly had to learn about tasting teas and matching blends and negotiating prices, and those were things that me personally, I never, learned. I realized I can taste teas a little bit better than most people can, but that still took a lot of time to actually figure out. And accounting, bookkeeping, stuff like that. That's stuff I never did.
Yeah, I remember the first time that I was, my very first emotional breakdown in the office was actually learning how to order tea. It's as simple as sending an email to suppliers, but why that sent me down a whole rabbit hole, I don't know. But that's, this is one of many things that we kind of had to deal with, is learning how to order tea, just send an email, negotiate the price. It's fine. It's not that serious.
There's something about, placing a $70,000 order for anything is, can be stressful your first time.
Yeah.
And then now those were things we needed to address immediately. Kind of the more important problems that took years for us to figure out were I list them here, but kind of the biggest one was there was no real inventory management system in place at the time when we were brought on. My dad, he was very passionate about his business. He was also he played everything really close to his chest, including the locations of tea in a 50,000 square foot warehouse. So our warehouses, we have two facilities. We have a warehousing location that's 50,000 square feet. We have a manufacturing facility where we do blending and packaging and stuff like that. That's about 25,000 square feet. And none of it had inventory tracking. So at the time, if somebody was missing a tea or they didn't know what we had, they would go to my dad and ask, hey, where's this tea? We're out of it. And it's like, no, we're not out of it. Go to this location and the third pallet rack up, and it's on the third level of this bag. He knew that kind of tea. He knew exactly what he bought it for. He knew exactly when he bought it. He would even know, this is the garden it came from, or this is the flavor profile of the tea.
The lot number, the price, whether or not it had been entered into QuickBooks or not.
Yeah. So that was kind of the biggest project we took on, and we really only finished in 2020. We had so much tea to go through, but happy to say now that we can scan inventory. I can look it up on my phone. I know exactly where all of my tea is. I have more tea than I will ever need. Speaking of which, I hope everybody picked up their tea at the front of the talk. We brought in some tea. It's called Devon's Legacy Chai after my dad. Thank you. So that was a big technical problem, implementing an inventory system. A big emotional problem was managing a team of people who were all older than us, who would pick us up from school when we were in elementary school. Some of these people we knew for like 20 years. And trying to convince them that we knew what we were doing when we didn't know what we were doing. Trying to convince them that we needed an inventory management system, or that we even needed to track, what teas we were blending. It was a lot, and we had to kind of, this was another part of dealing with that emotional trauma that we didn't get to do. That, if we had given maybe some time at the beginning, we might have been able to figure that kind of stuff out. And the last thing here is dealing with legacy customers and vendor balances. In addition to learning how to read a P&L and a balance sheet, I understood what was on those P&Ls and balance sheets. I saw, that customers owed us hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we owed our vendors hundreds of thousands of dollars. Thankfully, they balanced out, but we had to do the work of getting the money across. So it was hard, and I cannot be more grateful to the support system that we had in our family and our friends, that really got us through that time. It makes me emotional to think about it, but if those people weren't there, we wouldn't have been able to do this.
So this slide, fake it till you make it. I think this is one of those things that you hear a lot about. I think this is something that Brendan and I are very good at. Being honest about what you don't know and learning eagerly. I'll give you one little story. I think this was in about 9 months after we had taken over the business. It was January of 2017. We were asked to go to Japan to visit this region that had not started exporting tea from yet. And I said, sure, why not? The government's paying for it, let's go. We arrive in Japan, and we get to the embassy, and there's an American flag flying, and I'm like, oh, that's so interesting. What are the odds? Like, we're from America. Not realizing that they were flying this flag for us. Now, it's just me, my mom, and my cousin. It's like a little family trip almost. Go inside, the governor comes out. The governor of Mie comes out to meet us. And this is when they were just asking us all kinds of questions like, oh my God, like how do you import teas? Like, what do you think of our tea? Do you love it? What do you have to say? Asking me for all my opinions. I'm 23 years old. I don't know anything about this tea, and I was the epitome of fake it till you make it. And that was probably one of the more interesting things that I've experienced while I was there, but it turned out to be an amazing opportunity, which Brendan will kind of get into a little bit more. But that was something we really had to do. But.
Yeah, and the joke lesson here is fake it till you make it, right? I think that's a very useful skill to have. Improvisation is always good. But the truth is, the stuff I've written down on the slide is what we've learned is the actual way to deal with some of these problems, right? So if you don't know something, just be honest that you don't know, right? But if it's important, make sure you learn about it. I know some people in the room disagree with me, but ask dumb questions. I think that's really important. There aren't questions that are too dumb, even if people will tell you that there are.
I mean, there's no dumb questions, but if you're ever uncomfortable asking a question, then Google till you make it.
Another thing to do is to be confident in kind of the things that you do best. If you know you're good at something, make sure that you tell people that you're good at this thing, right? It helps you identify yourself as a person who's good at this thing. It helps you find work that you're good at and can help you move forward in your career. I think confidence is key, which is maybe the nicer way of saying fake it till you make it. And then the last thing here is work with people that make you better. And that's a couple of things, right? It's finding mentors who you're not afraid to ask dumb questions to. It's finding coworkers that want to move forward in their careers and want to help you move forward in their careers, in your careers. It's if you're doing a startup or if you're at an accelerator, making sure that you're at RIT, find the smart people and work with them to do cool stuff, right? Working with people that make you better is kind of the key to moving along in your career and just being fulfilled in the work that you do. I think if you're constantly having to be the person that's like pulling everybody around you up, maybe you need to find out some other people to help pull you up or to pull each other up, right? That's kind of where you need to be. Kind of another lesson, that previous slide was more lessons about careers and if you're going into the workforce. I think this one is more targeted towards entrepreneurs and people who will run companies or at least get companies started. You have to really learn to be in charge, right? It's scary, for sure. That's something that I'm terrified of, and I'm still terrified of, is making real decisions. But there were a couple of things that we did moving forward with the company. We had to make sure that the company was leading the tea industry. And one of the things that Bianca did early on was sign us up as members of the Tea Advisory Council at UC Davis for the Global Tea Initiative. We realized that that's kind of where tea education was going, and we had this university that's a major agricultural university that's interested in adding tea to their program. And again, we found people that can make us better, and we said, hey, let's do this. We learned about tea as much as we could, and we met and communicate with experts. Actually, to add on to that story about Japan, Japan is now like one of our strongest origins that we buy from. Hide-san, who is our broker in Japan, he's been an invaluable resource in getting us to understand and appreciate Japanese teas, and now a lot of our team is now experts in Japanese tea, and we buy, I think I just paid for a container of matcha that we're selling. It's like $100,000 container of matcha that we've sold in basically 6 months, which was unheard of when we started. Like when we were importing a container of tea, it would take us maybe a year to sell it. So,
and that trip also ended up in us being on every news channel in Japan, the cover of newspapers, followed us around tea plantations, making a documentary about us in Japan. So, yeah, it was a lot.
And then, meeting and communicating with experts, I think, is super important. We haven't in the last few years, but we run a tea tour through India where we get to stay on tea gardens, and we get to we get a lecture from this guy, Nigel Melican, who's a huge tea expert. And he tells you, okay, this is the biochemistry of what happens when you process tea leaves. And then an hour later, you're in the tea factory getting a hands-on experience making tea, and you can actually see the stuff. And what we've done is, like, we've brought our clients on those tours, and, you know, along with finding our own experts and finding our own people to make us better, you also want to be a person who makes other people better. So providing those experiences to our clients is how we do that, right? We have those connections, and we want to make sure that we can use those connections to make sure our clients are understand tea and have all of the tools that they need to learn. The next thing here is making hard decisions.
Yeah, I think making hard decisions is one of those things that's just in the territory of, you know, being in the C-suite at all. Some of the harder things we had to do were letting go of some longtime employees, and in the same breath, also making the decision to do the things that you were only you are qualified to do. It was only those things. I'll give you an example. I've fired 2 people ever. First time, we had to call the police afterwards. And the second time, both me and the employee ended up crying. So after that, I'd made the decision not to fire people anymore because it just didn't end up well. Other decisions that we had to make were, you know, cutting our catalog. We went from having, you know, over 4,000 SKUs to now, like 1,500 or something? Something like that. And with that, though, we knew that we would have to sacrifice some of our customers, and we had to say, okay, well, you know what, we're choosing then not to do business with some of these customers because it's not good for us at the expense of, you know, a $250 invoice versus something that could be a lot bigger. So there were a lot of things that we had to make decisions like that about. And want to talk about resilience?
Sure. This last point here is more relevant to recent times. The pandemic was hard on everybody, and it was particularly hard on the business because tea is not a particularly expensive product. It's a container of tea costs at most $100,000, but when your shipping costs on that container goes from $5,000 to $20,000, it's almost a deal breaker. It actually was a deal breaker. I haven't been in stock of Chinese white tea for 3 years. So it's hard to have to deal with those things. You know, a big part of what you need to do in those situations is be able to clearly communicate, have a support structure. Those are just like normal things that you need to do, which I think comes into this next slide, which is kind of broader lessons on entrepreneurship that we've learned. We have made so many mistakes. We have failed countless times. We've, messed things up. We've left a container at the port for 2 months just because we missed it, and not me personally, obviously.
Guilty.
But there are lessons that you learn, and I apologize if this is going to sound like a self-help talk, but this stuff is important. The first point I have on here is figure out what you want in your work and your life. Not only is that important to do in general, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're just going to be an employee, whether you're just graduating college, or whether you're 40 years old. Knowing what you want in your life is the number one thing that's going to help you make decisions. If you want a vacation in Italy for a month, a year, you have to build a life that lets you do that. If you want to go to Peru right after you give a talk at RIT, you have to build a life that lets you do that. And specifically in work, maybe this is more towards the entrepreneurs in the room, but knowing what you want your work to accomplish, however big or small that is going to help you make better decisions and get you to where you want to go. The second thing here is taking care of yourself. It's probably the most important thing on this slide. I mentioned before that it took years for me to deal with the trauma of losing my father. I wish I had gotten a therapist in 2016. I didn't get one until 2020, and I really needed to talk through those issues to really understand, how that affected me and how the decisions I was making were sometimes reckless because of that, or maybe I was too reserved on not making decisions because of that. Maybe, a big thing for us has been like, okay, well, if one of us suddenly dies, are we going to be able to hand this company off to the next person, or is it just going to, go away? That's been really difficult, and that's emotionally. Physically, you should be taking care of yourself as well. Not something that I do well. That's another lesson that's very painful. I have back issues that I should have gotten taken a look at a long time ago. Unfortunately, I didn't, and now I walk around with a limp. My leg hurts all the time. So make sure that if you have medical issues, go to a doctor, and listen to your friends who tell you to go to a doctor. My friends who told me to go to the doctor right here in the front row. Something I've talked about is finding the right people. Working with your siblings can be hard.
Yeah, I think we'll give you one more story here. Maybe the one time that Brendan and I had a full blowout, and now I don't know if we've mentioned this, but it's a tea company that we run, right? The one time that Brendan and I really got into it to the point where we were making employees uncomfortable, everybody was uncomfortable, we're just yelling and screaming at each other, was when he wanted to put a coffee machine in the office. And I said, no, what's wrong with you? Since then, we've compromised, and we now have a Keurig machine in the office.
We also have an espresso machine, and
he loves machines. We also have several tea machines as well. So that was the compromise.
But yeah, working with your siblings is hard. It took a long time for us to get over the brother-sister bickering. We'd still do it, but we try to make it at least a little funny now. But our family was super helpful, but finding good team members, finding people who can, again, make you better is a huge lesson to learn as an entrepreneur. You're never going to be able to accomplish anything alone, right? So making sure that you have the right people on your side is that's entrepreneurship 101, making sure that the right people are helping you get to where you want to go. Creating a vision for what you want to accomplish. I'll talk about it a little bit more on the next slide, but my vision for ITI, T-Vendor, Chado, all of these companies that we run is creating a more sustainable and more transparent supply chain in the food industry. And once I was really able to clarify that that's what I wanted to do, I started making decisions that helped us move in that direction. We'll talk a little bit more about what that means, but that's the vision that I created for the company. And when you create your vision for what you want to accomplish, whether it's personally, whether it's your company, whether it's the whole list of companies that you own or that you want to create, understanding what it is that you want to see in the world and how you can achieve that is a moment of clarity that can't be understated. Clearly, being able to communicate your ideas and expectations, that is incredibly important at the level that we operate. Communication is the most important skill that you can ever have. Being able to tell people clearly what you want and how they can help you achieve it, and then also making clear the expectations you have for that person. That's what will help you get, not what will help you, that's what will get your ideas implemented. And this last thing here is specifically for entrepreneurs. If you start a tea company and you love tea, you have to build a tea company that's gonna let you drink tea all day, right? That's gonna let you taste tea. That's what my dad did. Unfortunately, he also did all the accounting. He also ran the inventory management system in his head. When in reality, like a real entrepreneur, what you wanna do with the things that you create are creating the world around you that lets you do the thing you love, right? If you want to sit around and taste teas all day, then build the entire company to let you sit around and taste teas all day. If you are an entrepreneur and you love, making companies, or if you, for me personally, having really big, stupid ideas and then talking them down into reasonable ones, that's what I like doing. Build a company that lets you do that. And yeah, that's my lessons. Bianca, anything on that? No? No? All
I
right.
think you nailed it.
All right. All right. And then last thing here, moving forward. So we talked a little bit about the other companies that we advise early on in the talk. We run supply chain for a suite of e-commerce companies who are really heavy on social media. A lot of those lessons we're taking and applying to the wholesale importing company and trying to rebrand that company. We're trying to expand the tea rooms. And like I said, we're building a more transparent and sustainable supply chain in the food industry. So it's not a lot there, but it's what we're doing. That is everything I had. Did you have something?
No, I think that's it from us. Guys, thank you so much for listening to us. And this has been amazing. So thank you.